I'm curious, given the amount of change and the significant increase in users that you had, what has your engagement with different open source projects been? So you've taken the software, you're starting to leverage it. You're adding features, I'm assuming, when it doesn't quite fit. You're fixing bugs, you're fixing those vulnerabilities for you. What type of stuff did you push upstream, and what kind of formalized protocols did you have for doing that work?
Well, that's a really interesting question, and I think that was kind of like where we were finalizing at the end of the last term. We had implemented our own open source community. So there was kind of like how we can reuse whatever has been developed within the government,
Right.
and you had to be a government agency. Like it's not like a private participant could take it and then charge somebody to implement it. You had to be government, and it was there was kind of like an area that was looking at how when these glitches or modifications were identified and made, how they were accepted and pushed upstream. So that was quite, you can say it was an internal process really of the government and the participants that were within that community. And that was quite interesting. Personally, Infotech was cooperating with, we had a partnership with MyFos for core banking platform. And that's when things became complicated for the government. Because of course we got the code, we developed the code quite a bit, and we started using the code. And the agency that started using the code, it's a financial institution, so they have to comply with a whole lot of financial regulations. So how much could we give back to the community? That was a debate that we could probably still be having if we hadn't come to a certain determination at some point. Because then it's like, if you give it to the community, then are you opening it up to vulnerabilities? And could somebody do some reverse engineering and actually find the vulnerabilities and hack the bank and all these kind of questions? So the decision that was made at the time was that the latest releases wouldn't be able to be sent back. And whichever version the bank was operating with, or the financial institution, because there's several that are using it now, whichever was active, that couldn't go back to the community. So once we did a new version or we updated, then we could look at what components of that we could be sending back. And that's where maybe the regulation, and I don't think any country would probably be able to go that far, but it would be good to have these kind of guidelines in order to reassure what can you give back to the community. Because then once we did that, then I think it would be a lot more efficient. Because here it's unfortunately, as a public servant, there's a lot of liability for you. So if anybody does misuse of whatever you return to the community, then it could probably spill back on you. So that's what limits, I think, a lot of these interactions. We took that decision with MyFos, and fortunately, MyFos were very receptive of this. And so that's kind of one of the big challenges, no? Of how do you keep the sovereignty and the integrity of the government while being part of a community?
You said something there that struck me, the way you had, something worked someplace, and so then it was leveraged in other places, and you collected the things that weren't working to be pushed upstream. That sounded an awful lot like inner source. Did you ever use that term in your government activities?
No, because it would have just complicated with another topic that people wouldn't understand properly.
Okay.
It's open source. It belongs to the government. We can use it. It's free. That was all they needed to know at the time. But yeah, when you think about it, yeah, it was more of an in-stream kind of thing and setup when you put it that way.